Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about this ridiculous video from Planned Parenthood that is directed toward kids about the concept of virginity. Now, why are you talking to kids about virginity? I don't know. I can guess, but I don't really have a direct statement from Planned Parenthood on it. And if I did, I'm not quite sure that I believe it, but different story, and I digress. I don't know about y'all, but when I was coming up as a youngin', I was always told that you're a virgin if you have not had sex. That is what a virgin is. But apparently that concept is kind of confusing to some people, and they need this particular individual to explain it. And she's saying that it's not even really a real thing. Now, this is ridiculous to say the least, but we got to watch it. Yes, it's cringy, but since I cringe, you got to cringe as well. And of course, if you want to see this video for some reason in full, the link will be in the box. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. So
it's fake. It's not really real. There's no such thing as virgins. I think that is false, but I want to hear your explanation. Give us your rationale behind why you think that there's no such thing as virginity.
A term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems.
I mean, you just pretty much defined it. A virgin is someone who has never had sex. Okay, video over, right? I mean, so if you're talking about what it is and you're defining it as we all know it, then what else is there? There's nuance to your statement. Okay, let's hear it.
For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't actually mean anything.
I mean, what she's saying about the hymen is true, but that's not necessarily anything to do with virginity. That's not the same thing as saying that there's no such thing as virginity, because a hymen you might not have a hymen, or the hymen might have been damaged another way. Anything could have happened that will prevent the hymen from being there. So that's not necessarily a marker of a virgin, but just because it's not there and a person who's not had sex does not mean there's no such thing as virginity. We're confusing concepts and topics here.
That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels.
I mean, yeah, that's true to a certain extent. But again, we're talking about virgins, people who have not had sex. So what does that got to do with what we're talking about?
Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different things to different people.
Oh, here we go. Let's see what sex actually is. I think we could pretty much, we know what sex is. We're all human beings. Many of us who are watching, I presume the majority of you guys are adults. We know what sex is, but let's see what this particular individual has got to say on it.
Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex and choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead?
Okay, do you hear yourself? Like, you're saying oral, anal, vaginal sex. What do all of those different ways of sex have in common? They have the word sex in it. Anal sex, oral sex, vaginal sex. It's all sex. Now, I will say that some people think that if you have only like received or given oral sex, then it don't count as sex. That's ridiculous. It's all sex.
And not everyone's first sexual experience is consensual, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex.
I understand that, and if that happened, then whoever did that should get locked up right away. But just because it was not your choice does not mean it doesn't count. That's not what that means at all. This is just kind of like some women think like this. They think that sometimes sex doesn't count. I ain't talking about assault necessarily in this instance, but okay, I go on vacation, it don't count. Oh, well, that person I ain't like that guy too much, so I'm not going to count that particular individual. Okay, I'm not going to count that because that's not really. I'm not very proud of that one.
There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense. Either way, shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining? Because the truth is,
what are we gaining when we lose a virginity?
When we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self-insight, pleasure, and empowerment.
Okay, that's great, but this is just weird. This is just weird language. Like you can enjoy what you're doing, but again, we're talking about the concept of virginity. If you have sex, you're no longer a virgin. Now, you can call it whatever you want. You can say you lost your virginity. You can say you gained empowerment or whatever. That's totally fine. But your status as a virgin is done when you engage in sexual activity. This is not a hard thing to understand.
All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember. Sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time. Maybe it's having anal sex.
Remember, this is a video that's geared toward kids in school. I'm not quite sure what ages, but yeah, this is not for adults. Obviously, we're in the classroom. This is like a teacher kind of person. I don't know who this individual is. I'm not quite sure what the pronouns are. I'm not going to make any kind of assumptions. So just keep that in mind when you seeing all these things being listed, okay?
Maybe it's having your first orgasm. Maybe it's masturbating for the first time, or when you enthusiastically consent to sex.
So if you didn't reach the mountaintop, it doesn't count. like you're a virgin until you actually just went ahead and got all the way to the top of the hill. Okay, that's cool.
That's the beauty of your sexual journey. You're in charge, and you can figure it out on your own terms. Choosing to have sex, when, what kind, where, who with, is something that only you get to define.
All right, so that's Planned Parenthood. Again, I didn't make it up. It's Planned Parenthood putting out the video for young people, kids in school. It looks like a middle school, probably, maybe even elementary. I can't even tell at this particular point. As I close, I want to say this. I mean, the lady did make some points, but it wasn't relevant to the initial topic of virginity being the fake, like a made up concept to shame women. That's crazy. All that being a virgin means that you've not had sex. And some people are going to define sex differently. Some are going to say, well, since there was no penetration into the vagina, then yeah, I'm a virgin. Backdoor action, yeah, that's all good. Something doing with your mouth and your hands, that's all good. But as long as there's no, like straight in the front, then yeah, I'm a virgin. No vaginal penetration, I'm a virgin. That's not really how that works. Anal sex, oral sex is all sex. But as I close, I want to say this. This video is just an extension of feminism, in my opinion, and also a way for Planned Parenthood to make sex not really be a big deal so then they can get more customers. I mean, hey, at a certain point, shame and things of this nature are needed to a certain extent. I'm not saying go all the way above and beyond, do crazy, abusive things, but there needs to be a little bit of thinking, a little bit of thought process before you get into any kind of sexual activity, especially at a young age. You got there was at one point, maybe there still is now, a rash of teen pregnancies. You got girls 14, 15 years old. When I was in school, there were some girls having babies. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, let's understand that it's okay to be a virgin. It's not a bad thing. If you're a male, female, whatever, it's okay. Don't worry too much about trying to have your first time and engage in reckless behavior that might wind up you being a 15-year-old father or 14-year-old mother. You don't want stuff like that going on. Okay. So that should be more of the conversation rather than saying that virginity doesn't really count. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on this video from Planned Parenthood? Do you think that virginity is a fake, made up concept? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. That video was ridiculous. It was crazy. There were some points made, but it was overall a lie. That's how they do. They put some true statements into an overall point, an overall message that's false to give the false message validity. That's how liars operate. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that is all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.